A new study by Melbourne Law School has found more than a third of young people are being ripped off by their employers. To talk us through the details, Professor John Howe, who led the study, joins us now in studio. Good morning to you, John.
Morning.
These figures are staggering. Just how many young people are being exploited?
Well, as you said, Catherine, we found a third of young workers we surveyed had been paid $15 an hour or less. But we also found that underpayment and exploitation of these young workers is multifaceted. So some people are not being paid additional money for doing additional work. Some people are being paid in food or products. Some people are being paid are not being paid for overtime and things like that. So there was just the breadth of this exploitation was pretty staggering.
Imagine superannuation kind of features in there as well, right? Because we know that's a big problem, particularly for people under 30 who might not be really checking their balances ever.
That's right. So we found a quarter of the young workers surveyed hadn't been paid their super. Young people don't tend to worry so much about the super at that age, but it has big implications down the track because we're often talking thousands and thousands of dollars. So
who's most likely to be exploited in this situation? What sort of workers?
Well, I think certainly the younger cohort of, under sort of 25, but also transgender people, migrant workers, and certainly young workers from a non-English speaking background were particularly likely to be exploited.
John, we talked just now about super and how young people don't tend to think that far ahead, which I totally understand. They think, I'll never need super. Being old is a very long time away. I've read a case study where one young employee had checked the pay slip and saw that he was being paid super. There was actually allocated money on the pay slip, yet when it came to it, the company wasn't paying him. I mean, what can young people do if they're already checking their pay slips? It's fraudulent, essentially.
Yeah, look, and we're seeing quite a bit of this practice of formally paying people properly, but then the actual payments don't go into super, or some workers are being asked to pay some of the money back in cash back to the employer, so the employer can say to the regulators, look, I've done the right thing. But in actual practice,
really?
The real wage is quite a bit less.
You've got to check your MyGov to make sure, right? That's the
well, with the super, that's right. There have been some legislative changes to try and make the payment of super more transparent and give the Fair Work Ombudsman some jurisdiction over it, but we're yet to see if there's any impact to those changes.
And the problem is for young people, they might really need that job. They might be using it, to pay their rent, to help them out with uni. And they're probably afraid to speak up because if they do, their employer will just find someone else who doesn't complain. That's right.
And so that's right. Young workers are early in the labour market, so they're worried about losing the job they've just got. You've also got young workers who are casual. So a lot of the workers we surveyed were employed as casuals, so in a vulnerable kind of arrangement. So they're worried they're only getting work sort of week to week. They don't have an ongoing expectation of employment. So they're worried if I stick my neck out, I'm not going to get shifts next week. So that's another reason they don't complain.